It was just a normal Tuesday morning when I tried connecting my phone to my car Bluetooth. I selected the wrong device and suddenly found myself linked to my wife Melissa's car still in our garage. I was about to disconnect when I heard her laughing with someone. It was Jake, my best friend. Then I heard the words that shattered my world. Once he signs the house over for the tax benefits, we will have everything we need to start our new life without that pathetic fool. They laughed together. I froze. Before I continue with how I uncovered their entire scheme, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever had your trust shattered by someone you loved. I met Melissa 8 years ago at a friend's birthday party. She was standing alone by the punch bowl wearing a blue dress that matched her eyes. I remember thinking she was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. We got married 2 years later in a small ceremony, with just our closest friends and family. I was 34, she was 32, and I thought we had our whole lives ahead of us. We built what I believed was a good life together. I worked as a financial consultant helping people plan for their futures, while Melissa had a successful career in pharmaceutical sales. We bought a beautiful suburban home with a spacious backyard where we talked about raising children someday. Every Sunday we would make breakfast together and plan our week ahead. I thought we were happy. Jake had been my best friend since our college days. He was there for me when my father passed away unexpectedly during my sophomore year. We were roommates for 3 years, and after graduation we stayed in touch even as our careers took different paths. He went into real estate while I pursued finance. When Melissa and I started dating, Jake was supportive. He was the best man at our wedding, giving a toast that brought tears to my eyes. We regularly played golf together on Saturday mornings, and he was my partner in a few small investment ventures. I trusted him completely. Looking back, there were signs I should have recognized. Over the past year, Melissa had been traveling more frequently for work. Sales conferences, client meetings, training sessions that often ran late. She would return home distant, checking her phone, constantly smiling at text notifications before quickly hiding the screen when I entered the room. Our intimacy had diminished. She always had excuses, headaches, exhaustion, early mornings. I attributed it to work stress and gave her space. Jake had also changed subtly. He became increasingly interested in our financial decisions, asking detailed questions about my investments, my retirement accounts, even the equity in our home. At the time, I appreciated his interest. Now I understand it was reconnaissance. 3 weeks before that fateful Tuesday, Jake suggested we transfer our house into Melissa's name. It would give you significant tax benefits given your income brackets, he explained over beers in our backyard. Melissa was unusually interested in this conversation, asking pointed questions about the process and timeline. I was hesitant, but considering it. After all, this was my best friend giving professional advice, and my wife seemed supportive of something that would benefit our future. That Tuesday morning started like any other. I woke up at 6:15, showered and got dressed while Melissa was still sleeping. She had returned late from a dinner with clients the night before. I made coffee and was heading to my car, wanting to listen to a new podcast episode during my commute. I opened my Bluetooth settings, saw Melissa's Audi at the top of the list instead of my usual Adrian's BMW, and clicked without thinking. Instead of disconnecting immediately when I realized my mistake, something made me pause. I heard laughter coming through my phone speaker, Melissa, and a male voice, Jake's voice. My initial confusion quickly turned to shock. He has no idea, Melissa said, her voice carrying that light, carefree tone she rarely used with me anymore. Adrian thinks this is all about tax benefits. The fool actually believes I am helping him, Jake replied. The house is worth $850,000. Once he signs it over, we will have everything we need to start our new life. How much longer do we need to keep up this charade? Melissa asked. Just a few more months, Jake said. Once the house transfer is complete, we finalize the loan using it as collateral and move the money offshore. We can drop the act. That pathetic fool will never know what hit him until it is too late. They laughed together, a sound that cut through me like a knife. I stood in my driveway, phone in hand, my entire world collapsing around me. My wife and best friend were not only having an affair but planning to steal my home and savings before abandoning me. My first instinct was to storm back into the house and confront them, to scream and demand answers, to throw Jake out and tell Melissa to pack her bags. But something stopped me. A strange calm washed over me. If I reacted emotionally now, I would lose any advantage I had. They did not know I had discovered their plot. And knowledge, as they say, is power. I disconnected from the Bluetooth, took several deep breaths, and got into my car. As I drove to work, my mind was racing with questions and plans. I decided in that moment that I would not be their victim. I would not act rashly. I would be strategic. I would learn everything about their scheme, protect myself, and then when the time was right, I would turn their plan against them. Little did they know, their perfect victim had just become their worst nightmare, and I would make sure they regretted ever betraying me. The days following my discovery were among the hardest of my life. I experienced physical symptoms of shock nausea that kept me from eating, insomnia that left me staring at the ceiling while Melissa slept soundly beside me, and moments of dizziness when the reality of my situation would hit me anew. I wanted nothing more than to confront them immediately, to see the shock on their faces when they realized I knew everything. But that would have given them time to regroup, to create new plans, and potentially to hide assets I did not yet know about. Instead, I became an actor in the play of my own life. I maintained our normal routines, kissed Melissa goodbye in the mornings, met Jake for our regular golf games, and pretended everything was fine, all while I began a meticulous investigation into their betrayal. My first step was hiring a private investigator, Thomas, who came highly recommended for his discretion and thoroughness. I met him in a coffee shop 3 towns over, paid in cash, and gave him all the information I had. I need documentation of their affair, their meetings, and any financial transactions between them, I told him. I need irrefutable evidence. While Thomas worked on gathering physical proof, I consulted with Patricia, a shark of a divorce attorney who specialized in cases involving financial fraud. Document everything she advised during our first meeting. Every conversation, every unusual expense, every unexplained absence. And whatever you do, do not sign anything. Following her advice, I began keeping a detailed journal, noting Melissa's comings and goings, her excuses for late nights, and any conversations about our finances. I installed a small recording device in my home office where Melissa and Jake often spoke when they thought I was not home. I set up a separate email account to forward all documentation to ensuring they could not access it if they ever checked my primary accounts. What I discovered over the next few weeks was both heartbreaking and infuriating. Their affair had been going on for 18 months, starting shortly after Jake helped us refinance our mortgage. They had been siphoning small amounts from our joint investment account, never enough to raise immediate concerns, but totaling over $30,000 over the past year. They had opened a joint account in a bank across town. They had looked at properties in Colorado where they apparently planned to relocate once they had secured enough money. The most disturbing discovery came from emails. Thomas recovered they had been discussing various business opportunities they planned to pursue with my money. My money that they were planning to steal through the house transfer and subsequent loan. They had already made contact with potential partners using projections that included funds they did not yet have. They were building an entire future on the ruins of mine. While gathering this evidence, I had to maintain the facade of the oblivious husband. I continued discussions about transferring the house, appearing to move forward, while finding excuses for delays. I created false financial documents showing less equity in the house than we actually had, which I strategically left where Melissa would find them. I took her on date nights, bought her gifts for our anniversary, and even planned a weekend getaway that I knew would give Thomas time to access and document files in our home office. The psychological toll was immense. Every smile from Melissa felt like a knife twist. Every backslap from Jake made me want to break his arm. I found myself analyzing every word, every gesture, wondering how I could have missed the signs for so long. How the woman who once held me through the night when I was grieving my father could now plot my financial ruin. How the friend who helped me move into my first apartment could betray me so completely. During those 97 days, I protected myself on all fronts. I transferred significant portions of my personal savings to new accounts Melissa had no access to. I documented every unusual transaction in our joint accounts. I secured my most important personal possessions, including family heirlooms and irreplaceable photographs, in a safe deposit box. I changed the passwords on my personal email accounts and financial portals. I began building a financial cushion that would support me through the coming storm. At night, lying next to the woman who was plotting against me, I would sometimes almost break. The weight of the betrayal, the loneliness of carrying this knowledge alone, The exhaustion of constant vigilance nearly overwhelmed me. But then I would remember their laughter in the car that morning, the casual cruelty in their voices when they called me a pathetic fool, and my resolve would harden again. By day 90, I had amassed a comprehensive file of evidence, photos of their meetings in hotel lobbies, recordings of their conversations in my home documentation, of financial transactions, copies of emails discussing their plans, and a detailed timeline of their affair and financial schemes. I had secured my assets, consulted with legal experts, and prepared for every contingency. The final week was the hardest, maintaining the charade while knowing what was coming. Watching them grow increasingly confident, exchanging glances at dinner when they thought I was not looking, hearing Melissa on the phone with Jake using our private code words that once meant something special between us. The urge to confront them grew almost unbearable, but I stayed the course knowing that patience would yield the most complete victory. On day 97, everything was ready. My counter-strategy was set. The trap I had laid for the people who tried to destroy me was about to be sprung, and they had no idea what was coming. The night before my planned confrontation, we had dinner at home. Melissa had prepared my favorite meal steak with roasted potatoes and asparagus. She wore the perfume I had given her for her birthday, and she was unusually attentive, refilling my wine glass and asking about my day with apparent interest. I now recognized this behavior for what it was: guilt masked as affection, a preemptive peace offering for the betrayal she was engineering. Jake called during dinner, and she stepped away to take it. I could hear her laughing in the other room, probably finalizing details for their scheme. When she returned, there was a flush to her cheeks that had nothing to do with the wine. "Jake wants us to come over for dinner this weekend," she said, sliding back into her chair. "He wants to go over the final paperwork for the house transfer. He says everything is ready." "That sounds great," I replied, raising my glass in a toast. "To new beginnings." She clinked her glass against mine, a smile playing at the corners of her lips. To new beginnings. If she only knew what kind of new beginning was actually coming. I slept poorly that night, going over the plan repeatedly in my mind. By 5 a.m., I was wide awake watching Melissa sleep beside me. In repose, she looked like the woman I had fallen in love with. No trace of the calculating betrayer she had become. For a brief moment, I felt a pang of doubt. Was I really prepared to upend our lives this way? Then I remembered the recording of her voice, that pathetic fool. My resolve hardened once more. I rose quietly dressed and gathered my prepared materials. I had already moved most of my essential belongings to a new apartment I had rented under an LLC. What remained were just props in the stage play of our marriage. At 6:30 a.m., I sent simultaneous emails to Melissa, Jake, both of their parents, our closest friends, and several of their colleagues. The subject line was simple: the truth about Melissa and Jake. The email contained selected evidence of their affair, photographs, transcripts of conversations, and financial documentation showing their attempts to defraud me. I included a link to a secure cloud folder with video evidence, including footage from our home security cameras showing them together in our house while I was supposedly out of town. I attached financial records showing the money they had diverted, and I included the recording from my car Bluetooth that had started it all. I ended the email with a simple statement: "I have filed for divorce on grounds of adultery and financial fraud. Additional evidence has been provided to the relevant authorities regarding the attempted fraud. I trusted you both, and you betrayed that trust in the most painful way possible. I deserve better. And now everyone knows exactly who you are." By 7 a.m., I was sitting in my attorney's office preparing for the meeting I had scheduled with Melissa and Jake at 9. Patricia had arranged for a professional mediator to be present, as well as her associate, who specialized in financial crimes. We reviewed our strategy one last time while waiting. My phone began buzzing incessantly at 7:15. Melissa was the first to call, followed immediately by Jake, then Melissa's parents, then our friends. Within an hour, I had 42 missed calls, 38 text messages, and 26 voicemails. I did not answer any of them. The text messages ranged from Melissa's initial confusion, "What is this?" "Call me now," to anger, "How dare you share private information," to panic. "Adrian, please, we need to talk," to pleading, "I can explain everything, please just answer your visit." Phone. Jake's messages followed a similar pattern, starting with denial. This is all a misunderstanding before transitioning to threats. You will regret this, and finally desperate backpedaling. We can work this out between us, no need for lawyers. At precisely 9 a.m., they arrived at the attorney's office together, exactly as I had predicted. Melissa's eyes were red and puffy from crying. Jake looked pale and disheveled, his usual confident demeanor replaced by nervous agitation. They froze when they saw me sitting calmly at the conference table, a thick folder of documents in front of me. "What is this about?" Jake demanded, trying to reclaim some authority. "These accusations are completely outrageous." "Please sit down," Patricia said coolly. "We have quite a lot to discuss." What followed was the most satisfying 2 hours of my life. We methodically presented the evidence, the Bluetooth recording the private investigators' photographs, the financial records, showing their diverted funds, emails, discussing their plans to take out a loan against the house once it was in. Melissa's named their research into properties in Colorado, and finally the business plan they had drafted using my stolen money as startup capital. Their faces cycled through emotions: shock at the breadth of evidence, embarrassment at having their private conversations exposed, fear as they realized the potential legal consequences, and finally defeat as they understood how completely their plan had backfired. "You monitored our private conversations." Melissa attempted, her voice shaking. "Is that even legal?" Patricia smiled thinly. "Recording conversations in your own home to uncover fraud is perfectly defensible. Conspiring to commit financial fraud, however, is a criminal offense in this state." Jake tried a different approach. "Adrian, man, this is all a big misunderstanding. We were just discussing possibilities, nothing was set in stone. We would never actually go through with something like this." I looked at my former best friend, the man who had stood beside me at my wedding, who had helped me bury my father, who had betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. "The house transfer paperwork you prepared tells a different story," I said, sliding a document across the table. "As does the loan application you already submitted, using projected equity from my house. The house you never lived in or paid for." Melissa began to cry. "Adrian, please. We can fix this. I made a terrible mistake. I still love you." For a moment, her tears almost reached me. Then I remembered her laughter in the car. The callous way she had discussed discarding me once I was no longer useful. The months of lies, directly to my face. "No," I said simply, "you do not get to rewrite this story now that you have been caught. I have already filed for divorce. Given the evidence of financial fraud, my attorney assures me it will proceed quickly. The locks at the house have been changed, and a security service has been engaged. Your personal belongings will be available for pickup at a time arranged through our attorneys. Do not attempt to contact me directly again." I stood up, gathering my papers. "Oh, and Jake, the authorities have been notified about your professional conduct. The real estate board takes a dim view of agents who attempt to defraud clients. I expect your license review will be quite thorough." The look on their faces as I walked out of that room will stay with me forever. The shock of finding themselves outplayed at their own game. The dawning realization that their carefully constructed future had just collapsed. The understanding that they had not only lost their scheme but also their reputations, as everyone in our social circle had now seen proof of their betrayal. As the door closed behind me, I heard Melissa burst into sobs. Jake was shouting something about privacy laws, but their voices faded as I walked down the hall toward my new life. A life where I would never again be anyone's fool. The days following the confrontation were strangely empty. After months of investigation, planning, and performance, the sudden absence of purpose left me adrift. The initial triumph faded, leaving room for the grief to finally surface. I had lost my wife, my best friend, and the future I had planned all at once. Despite the satisfaction of thwarting their scheme, the pain of betrayal remained raw and throbbing. I moved into my new apartment, a modern one-bedroom, in a building across town where no one knew me. The sparse furnishings and blank walls matched my emotional state, a clean slate, but barren. For the first 2 weeks, I barely left except for work and necessities. I avoided calls from concerned friends and family, unable to discuss what had happened without reopening the wound. The divorce proceeded quickly, just as Patricia had promised. Given the overwhelming evidence of Melissa's infidelity and attempted financial fraud, the judge had little sympathy for her claims. The house was awarded to me along with compensation for the funds they had diverted. Jake faced a review from the real estate board, resulting in the suspension of his license, pending a full investigation into ethical violations. Our mutual friends largely sided with me once they saw the evidence, though some suggested I had been too harsh in my public exposure of the affair. Melissa's parents, who had always treated me like a son, sent a heartbreaking letter expressing their shame at their daughter's actions and their sorrow at losing me from their family. Jake's mother called me in tears, apologizing for what her son had done. These conversations were among the most difficult, as I had lost not only my wife and friend, but an entire extended family I had come to love. About a month after the confrontation, Thomas, my private investigator, called with an update. "Thought you would want to know," he said. "They are not together anymore. Had a huge fight outside her temporary apartment." He was blaming her for being careless. She was screaming that this was all his idea from the beginning. Neighbors called the police. I felt no satisfaction from this news. Their relationship, built on mutual deceit, had predictably collapsed under pressure. But its destruction did not undo my pain or restore what I had lost. Healing came slowly in small increments. I began seeing a therapist, Dr. Marshall, who specialized in betrayal trauma. Our weekly sessions helped me process not only the pain of Melissa's affair, but the deeper violation of trust from both her and Jake. "What troubles you most about the betrayal?" Dr. Marshall asked during one session. I considered the question carefully. That I never saw it coming. That I believed so completely in two people who were actively plotting against me. "What does that say about my judgment?" "It says you are capable of genuine trust and love," she replied. "Their betrayal speaks to their character, not yours. The question now is, how will you carry this experience forward, without letting it destroy your capacity for trust?" That question became central to my recovery. How could I prevent this experience from turning me bitter and closed off? How could I honor the pain without being defined by it? 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I made 3 significant changes. First, I accepted a job offer in Seattle, wanting a complete geographic break from the place where my life had imploded. Second, I began volunteering at a financial literacy program for young adults, using my professional skills to help others avoid financial vulnerability. And third, I cautiously rejoined the dating world with new boundaries and a hard-earned wisdom about red flags I would never again ignore. Melissa attempted reconciliation twice. The first time was a tear-filled phone call 3 months after the divorce, claiming she had made the biggest mistake of her life and would do anything to earn back my trust. The second was an unexpected visit to my office, where she appeared with a carefully rehearsed speech about growth and forgiveness. Both times I declined politely, but firmly. Some betrayals cut too deep for second chances. Jake never attempted to contact me directly, though I heard through mutual acquaintances that he had moved to Arizona and was trying to rebuild his career there. His professional reputation had been severely damaged, and several former clients had filed complaints after learning of his attempted fraud. The hardest lesson was learning to trust again. Every new relationship, whether professional or personal, began with a layer of skepticism that had never existed before. I found myself analyzing motives, looking for inconsistencies, questioning sincerity in ways that sometimes created unnecessary distance. Gradually, though, I found a balance: caution without paranoia, healthy boundaries without impenetrable walls. I began building a new social circle in Seattle. People who knew me only as I was now, not as half of the couple I had been with Melissa. I dated casually at first, then met Samantha, an architectural engineer whose straightforward nature and clear communication felt like a balm after years of hidden agendas. 2 years after the confrontation, I returned to my hometown for a friend's wedding. I ran into several people from my old life, including mutual friends who had witnessed the spectacular implosion of my marriage. Many expressed surprise at how well I looked, how much happier I seemed. "Do you regret how publicly you exposed them?" one friend asked after several drinks at the reception. I thought about the question, remembering the shock and humiliation on their faces when they realized everyone knew what they had done. "No," I finally answered. "Sunlight is the best disinfectant." Secrets and lies were their weapons. The truth was mine. What I learned through this painful chapter is that while trust is precious, self-respect is essential. I would rather lose a relationship than lose myself by accepting betrayal or disrespect. I learned that strategic thinking serves better than emotional reaction. that there is extraordinary power in appearing to be the fool while quietly gathering your strength. Most importantly, I learned that endings, even devastating ones, can lead to new beginnings far better than what was lost. My life now has an authenticity and peace it lacked before. The betrayal forced me to rebuild on a stronger foundation of self-knowledge and clear boundaries. If you are going through something similar, remember this: their betrayal does not define you. Their choices reflect their character, not your worth. And sometimes losing what you thought you had is the first step to finding what you truly deserve. Have you ever discovered someone's true colors just in time? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story helped you feel less alone in your struggles, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories of overcoming betrayal. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, share this video with them. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, the end of one chapter is just the beginning of a better story.